Keep up with Scottish football with your host, John Turner.
So in this week's episode of the Low Ball Show, I've a man who's played with teams such as, been at clubs such as Hamilton, East Stirling, and is the current Albion Rovers goalkeeper, and actually the most requested person to be interviewed in the show is Ross Connelly. Ross, thanks for coming on.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
You've genuinely saved me here because, as I said, you were before you come on, I was telling you you're the most requested person. So a lot of Albion Rovers, who my local club, with a lot of people affiliated with Albion Rovers, and obviously as we spoke about Sandy and Peyton being on, and you've been the most requested person on.
Well, that's flattering. Appreciate that for yourself and for all the guys that requested as well.
Do you know, I suppose just to kind of quickly jump in, as I'd say, I've been at quite a lot of Albion Rovers games throughout the season, with it being the kind of local team. Been to quite a few away games that you've played in as well. And I think it's kind of probably fair to say, and I think one of the reasons that you were so well requested is the consistency of performances from yourself this season.
I appreciate that. Obviously, it's been a good season personally, and then from a club's perspective as well, it's obviously not been the dream season that some people might have thought it was going to be, but in terms of a club and as a team and my personal goals as well, like, we have hit targets and we've done well as a unit. The fans obviously have been fantastic. I think we've got one of the highest away attendances definitely in the league, and consistently home games as well, whether it's the wee casuals with the drum and the flair or the guys that have had season tickets for years on end, that they're always coming out and supporting us, so it has been great.
And one thing just talk about kind of personally, because now I'm sure you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong here, and apologies if I'm, but I think league-wise you're at 11 clean sheets.
You might have got that spot. I would need to go and recount. I know as of today, we do have the best defensive record in the league. I think we've conceded like 20, I think it's 28 goals in the league from 30 or 31 games. So we're like 10 goals less than the next closest team. I know that. That's obviously me and the guys' personal goal finish in the last few games of the season would be to finish as high in the table, obviously, and to try and maintain the best defensive record in the league. Obviously, that comes from myself, and that comes from all the boys that are on the pitch. And we've had a few play different positions throughout the season. The defence has chopped and changed a fair bit, but that's the sort of personal goals going into the last stretch.
And just to maybe take a slight step back, because this hasn't been your first encounter with the gaffer.
Yeah.
So you've obviously worked together before at East Stirling.
Yeah, so I'd met the gaffer and George as well last season, the back end of last season at East Stirling. I'd been there since leaving Hamilton in 2020. Worked with a manager, Derek Ure, for a couple of years, who was an East Stirling legend. He decided to step away, and Sandy and George came in. Quite nerve-wracking when they first came in the door. Obviously, it's the only manager that a lot of that squad at the time had. And they came in and they sort of tidied everything up. Came in with a good level of professionalism, and it sort of turned the season around for us. We weren't going through a great spell in the league, results-wise, goals-wise, clean sheets-wise, in every aspect really. And they came in and just sort of streamlined the strengths that we had, and then just took more of a hands-on approach with a lot of the guys. And I think the guys responded better to that, and it took a real positive spin on the season we were having. So meeting them sort of influenced me in terms of performance-wise and just mentality-wise as well. It's been great ever since working with them.
And then obviously when they went to Albion Rovers, did that make the decision easier for yourself?
For myself, it was always the case of I was really happy where I was. I was a fan's favourite at East Stirling, and I've got a lot of respect and love for that club still to this day. My own personal goals would obviously be to try and play at the highest level that I can. but also consistently be on the pitch. I'm very much of the belief, and I say that to all the goalies I coach these days as well, that you're not going to get any better if you're not on the pitch. So the decision for me was, am I going to go somewhere and play every week? So they guys moved on, I think, the last 5-6 games trying to keep Albion up. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And they got in contact over the summer. And obviously going into that decision-making process, I knew that in terms of finances, it wasn't too dissimilar. In terms of location, it wasn't too dissimilar. But just for me, Albion Rovers was a fresh start. And with Sandy and George being there, that sold it for me, just knowing that I was going to work under the two guys. And obviously I'd heard a lot about the club and the background of the club and everything else. It was really exciting, and obviously playing this season and it all going reasonably well, I'm happy with that decision.
Because when you'd obviously first come in and the club at that point, as you'd say, is unfortunately they weren't able to stay up, and the relegation through the playoffs. What was the atmosphere like when you had came in?
So I'd came in, I was on holiday actually. I left for holiday the day that they got relegated. And from there, it was still pretty unclear. I didn't know what the move was going to be or whether it was even going to happen. I think I was the second one to sign. I was the first new signing. I think Adam Fernie and myself met the first night, a couple of days after I was home, and signed our contracts. And it was more so, spoke to George. Sandy was still in America at that point. And it was more so just an introduction. Here's what had happened. Here's what the plan was going to be. But we were all very aware that it was going to be a massive rebuild. I think, about 80-90% of the first team from last season at the Rovers moved on. I think only 2 or 3 stayed on. I think Sean Fagan stayed, Joe Bevan stayed, and Adam Fernie stayed, as well as Devin McCall stayed as well, actually. So I think it was disappointing, but here's our target. We're going to get a full season at the Lowland League. Let's see what it's all about. Let's see what we can do and what we can build from there, and try and get the club back to where they want to be.
And then obviously the start that was had, if you just look at the cup, so obviously the Viaplay Cup comes up, so you've not really got much time of a pre-season then. So for you as a goalkeeper, how is that? Do you enjoy just being right into games, or?
For myself, it's also training's one thing, and I think games are completely different. You get boys that really enjoy the week, and then maybe not so much the Saturday, and you get some that are vice versa. For me, it was really, really exciting. Again, that was a huge draw for me to come and sign for the Rovers, was the fact that we were in the Viaplay Cup. You look at the group that we had Annan, Kilmarnock, Dunfermline and Raith Rovers. Really good teams, really good places to go and play football. So for me, it was a case of, I think we got about 3 or 4 weeks pre-season, played a handful of games. We played the NL Trophy as well against Airdrie, Cumbernauld Colts. So we're just sort of gelling as a team because it was such a massive rebuild. There was only 1 or 2 for the starting 11 that started. So for me, it was more so, right, it's a big change. Can I focus on doing my job to the best of my ability and mixing with the group and getting to know everyone as we go. And although we didn't get out of the group in the Viaplay Cup, it was still a really, really positive experience. And I think we came together and actually performed very, very well as a group. So I'm really happy with that.
And because to look at the obviously coming in and the rebuild that is to happen, as a goalkeeper, having the kind of defence in front of you, I think it's, you won't mind me saying, you're very vocal when you're on the park.
Lose my voice from time to time.
But when it's new players in front of you, how do you adapt to that?
It's hard. I go into games, and I'm sure a lot of goalkeepers are the same, about sticking to my strength, sticking to my gun. So from all the time since being at Hamilton as a kid, I've always sort of been that vocal goalkeeper and just trying to command and trying to dictate and trying to help as best I can. Obviously, at the very beginning, it was more so, I only just know your name. So can we get through this, and can we, react to what's in front of us? For me, it was more a case of, personally, can I get my head on? Can I go and play well? And if I can support the guys around me at that point, then all the better. And even then, you look at the games that we played, we defended really, really well. And 3 out of 4 of the games, the Dunfermline game, we weren't at our best. But Raith Rovers, they gave us a fair whack, and I think we only conceded in the 74th, lost 2-0, but Annan, we done really, really well, beat them, and then Kilmarnock as well, 2-1 against Kilmarnock at home, and it was, I think, 8 out of their starting 11, I counted at the weekend, 8 out of their starting 11 against, like, SPFL clubs started against us, so it wasn't as if it was, like, a B team or anything they were playing, so...
And the Kilmarnock game was one of the games I was at, and even I walked away from it going, I can't believe that was a defeat.
Yeah.
Because the performance was that well that I thought at the very least a draw. And funny enough, I looked at it a few weeks ago as to the players that had started in that game, to the consistency of performances throughout the season. And the biggest bulk of them have continued to play throughout the season.
100%. Like, obviously, the Kilmarnock game was obviously the biggest draw. Got to meet Derek McInnes, obviously, who actually played with my dad. I went to school with my dad. Obviously, I knew Fraser Stewart, the goalie coach from years ago, and the SFA set up and stuff. And then boys like Danny Armstrong and Lewis Mayo, these boys that I've played with at Hamilton, at Rangers as a kid. So just looking at that and going, you're doing what every kid's dream is, and now like we're sharing a pitch, which is pretty cool.
And then, and I think it's probably safe to say that the league at the start was probably up and down in regards to results.
Yeah.
What was that like for yourself as the goalkeeper? Because I always think, it's easy for players to think they've had a good game, a bad game, or an indifferent game. But as a goalkeeper, because you're literally the last line of defence, if you have a good game, then it's great for everybody. If you have a bad game, it affects you. But if other people round about you obviously have bad games, it then all falls on you.
Yeah, 100%. It's the results. I think we were at a disadvantage partly because of the Viaplay Cup. We were 3 or 4 league games behind most of the teams when we started. So in terms of thinking, can we go and challenge? Can we go and do really well in the league? We were already maybe 9 points behind some of these clubs. We get beaten the opening day of the season against Hearts B, which I think was a wake-up call, because we're going into these games thinking, oh my, we gave Raith Rovers a run for the money. We gave Kilmarnock a run for the money. This is Hearts B. And then from there, it was just up and down, up and down. In terms of being on the pitch and personal performance, it's tough. You want to help the team as best you can, but also you want to go, have I played well today? Touch wood, I don't think I've had too many shockers. I've had a few mistakes as the seasons went on, which have directly influenced results 100%. We played Stirling Uni away quite early on in the season, cruising 2-0 up. I've made a mistake. We end up drawing 2 each. You look at Edinburgh Uni away a handful of months ago, similar situation. So you look at the worst cases and you go, oh wow, we've done that. But then more recently, I remember we played Gretna and that's a really, really sticky game at home. I've made a decent, a good save at 0-0, and we score 5 minutes later. We win the game 1-0. So you go, these are the sort of key moments that define it. Obviously, what has been really, really beneficial this year is Sean Fagan, Alan Reid, Arnie Casa, and the majority of the squad that are in front of us. For me, it's been quite eye-opening in terms of how much they actually stop, because I'm not coming out of games having to make 5, 6, 7, 8 saves. Yeah. It's maybe 1 or 2 key moments, and we're really working as a compact unit. That comes from the gaffer, that comes from George, and the system we play, and everyone else through the team from now all the way through. That's obviously defensive record as well. It shows. It's more so, can we grind out results and be hard to beat? So, results have been up and down, but in terms of consistency of performance, it has been pretty good.
And just to say as well, there's been several games that I've been at where, and I think it's not just because you're sitting on. It's safe to say there's some saves that you've pulled off, and I think a lot of people have looked about and went, "How did that not go in?" So I know you hesitated in bumming some of your saves up, but I'll happily do it because I have seen them for myself. I'll be honest and say I haven't actually really seen, and I'm very honest in doing this, too many or any that come straight to my mind of major mistakes where I go, "Oh, what's he doing?" Which I think is probably more positive on yourself because of the work rate and concentration that you obviously put in, and clearly shines through.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm my own biggest critic, as I think all players should be. Obviously, touch wood, there's not been any run-ins with the gaffer where he's came for me or anything like that. Again, as a team, you've got to be strong. If I can get through, I think if I play every game this season, I'll have played 49 times for the club, something like that. So if I can get through 49 games and make a few mistakes as a goalkeeper, that's pretty good going.
Yeah.
Again, though, that comes from the other guys, that comes from our setup and everything else. But I know, I appreciate you saying that. I'm sure some of the fans might feel the same. I get text messages and comments and Twitter and all that stuff. So,
well, one of the questions when you talk about the defence and the line in front is obviously Sean Fagan was a massive player and massive defender for the club. You know, had recently hit his 150th game, and moved on. Now, you know, in regards to him moving on, now wish him all the best with it, and a great move for him. But for you as a goalkeeper, knowing, you know, that's your centre half who, when you've just kind of come into the club at the beginning of the season and you're starting to build the relationships, and then he goes, does that for you feel a bit like a gap there now that you have to try and build that relationship again?
Yes and no. I'm quite an emotional player. I think you can maybe see that watching some of the games, that it does get heated. But Sean was actually one of the ones that I had known previously. So I went to school in Falkirk at Graham High, one of the performance schools. He went to Larbert High, so we played together at the Scottish schools, like under 18 setup. So I knew Faggy. So I came in, I went, oh, there's a friendly face, blah, blah, blah. And then throughout the season, you just build such a close-knit relationship with these guys. And he's digging me out, I'm digging him out and everything else. So when he went, I remember the gaffer telling us after one of the games that, oh, that looks like it's going to be Faggy's last game. I was like, oh, it just kind of comes over you. It's overwhelming. Which was tough, and obviously Fig's a great guy, and none of us have got any bad words to say about the move or anything like that. But you go, well, that's your club captain. You need to. Naya's obviously taken the captaincy role now, and he's done really well with that. Reedy's stepped in. You've also got Fernie filling in as well. So one door closes, another door opens for another player. But you go, you maybe miss Faggy's voice, or you miss that sort of thing. But we've still defended really well since he's came out, which is great. And that's a big credit. I say it all the time. Alan Reid, what a soldier for the club, and honestly, one of my favourite guys in that dressing room, just for the job that he does. I think Reid's 36 now, so he steps into that role. You've then got Arnie dropping in, you've got Fernie covering. So from a team, from an outside perspective, you go, oh, you've lost Faggy, but inside you're going, can we still be as strong? Can we still be as compact? So nothing's changed too much in terms of going into games and the game plan. It's obviously just personnel changes. But unfortunately, that's football, and it does happen.
And can I just say, and saying 36 every day, I'm 36, so I now feel it's really old the way you flung that out there.
No way.
But yeah, I suppose one of the things, and I totally get about another door opening for other players, and obviously for yourself it being a friendly face, but not too long before that, obviously, Bevan had left, who again was a kind of big performer on a lot of the stages. Great move again for him, great opportunity. But was that a surprise when that came about?
None of us really flinched too much. Joe was one of the first names that George had mentioned to me when he phoned me over the summer. He says, look, we've got this boy Bevan, a lot of clubs looking at him. We've managed to secure him for next season. If we keep him that long, it'll be brilliant, but he's going to do really well. So obviously I'd heard the name here and there walking in the door, and then you look at the TV game and against Stirling Uni and the stage that he puts himself on, and his pace is frightening, his left foot's frightening. Like, Joe's a fantastic player, some size, some stature for his age. So none of us were surprised. I think there was quite a lot of interest from up in Scotland as well. But again, I think like a lot of the guys have said, if an English club comes, you go. And and all credit to Joe for doing that for himself, and he seems to be doing well. He scored a few goals in the 18s and the 23s already, so
Yeah.
a loss for the club, but
Yeah.
financially I think we get something back for Joe and for Sean as well, which is going to help for the rebuild next season as well.
And then to look at, I mean, obviously you're talking about the kind of characters and the players and the dressing room, for example. I mean, it's who would you say is the kind of voices in the dressing room that are quite prominent?
Naya Joseph would be the first name that comes to mind. Naya is a very strong character. Him and Alex McCaw are like a double act. Two of them are brilliant. Naya's quite vocal on the pitch as well. Trying to think. Do you know what? It's really, really good this season. There's a few older heads. Arnie's a little bit older. Pates is a little bit older. And Reedy's a little bit older. But other than that, we're all sort of late teens, early 20s. So we're all kind of just a group of guys training and enjoying ourselves and trying to do the best that we can together. So I would say Naya and Alex are two of the more vocal ones on the pitch. You look at Reedy as well, who's very, very vocal. But we all got on great. There's no one that doesn't talk. There's no one that talks too much. It's a really ideal mix. It's one of the most enjoyable dressing rooms that I've found myself in.
And you look at yourself, I know before we came on, and obviously, with the positions now at Rovers being part-time, so training a couple of nights a week, but you do other training out with that to kind of keep yourself, I'm assuming, kind of fit, sharp.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that I'm still studying at university. I'm at Stirling Uni just now, so obviously, although that's full time, it's only a couple of days a week. So I'm fortunate that I get to train in the mornings with my old club Hamilton, and I train with the first team in that with John and Potsy and all the squad there, which I'm really grateful for. It sort of fell into place. They'd asked me to referee one of the youth league games, one of their youth team games over the summer. And I spoke to a guy, Jamie Smith, who's one of their first team keepers. I said, look, what's happening? He's like, look, there's guys coming in that used to play. Like, why don't you speak to Potsy? I was like, oh, that'd be great. Like, they could just keep me ticking over, because falling from full-time and being young and then going into the part-time environment, don't think it hindered me too much, but you do feel the difference. You feel the sharpness coming. So I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, and full support from the club, from Sandy. I spoke to him as soon as I met him. I said, look, here's what I do. Does this suit? And he says, look, the more you're on the pitch, the better for me, the better for you.
Yeah.
So again, you're training with a top League One team, and they were a decent Championship team last year as well. So surrounding myself with full-time players and trying to train as close to full-time as I can, I feel helps me on the pitch, and it helps my mentality off the pitch as well. So a massive thanks to Albion for allowing me to do that, and a huge thanks for Hamilton as well for having me in.
And as well, I mean, Hamilton, a lot of people don't realise too how outstanding their kind of youth setup and full setup is there. Yeah. And when I went over, I'll be honest and say I was probably one of the ones that didn't realise just how kind of how much went on and how successful all that's been over there. So it's a great place to kind of to go if you're doing extra.
It is a great place, especially I've been there. Well, I was there, for the best part of 10 years. I signed there when I was 10 years old. I was fortunate enough I got a full-time contract for 3 years, leaving school. And we had a really good bunch of boys at that time, with Naya playing in that squad, with Charlie Riley as well, who's obviously at Albion, made a move last season. And we ended up winning the league. We played in the UEFA Youth League. We got away at a handful of tournaments in France. And it was just a really, really tight-knit environment. And it was tough. Of course, it was tough being an apprentice footballer. We weren't getting paid any amount of money, really. But the characters in that dressing room, it was Martin Cannon was the original manager. George Cairns, the head of academy, sort of molds you into the player, into the man that you become. So I'm eternally grateful for that opportunity. And luckily enough, I can still continue to go in and show my face.
And I mean, I suppose one of the questions on it though, what's it like being, a kind of youth player and travelling away, going and playing in tournaments and games, across the world? What's that kind of experience from a young age like?
It's really interesting. It's quite eye-opening. You feel like a bit of a superstar, and you go, "Oh, this is what the pros do every week. Like, this is just normal." And obviously that year that we won the domestic league and we got to play in the UEFA Youth League was just frightening. Best year of my life, I would say. So we went to Switzerland. We played FC Basel away, 2 each. We drew 2 each at home. We went to penalties and we won in front of like the highest youth attendance that Hamilton's ever had, with 2,500 people at that game. And then a couple of weeks later, we went over to Denmark. We played against Midtjylland, and that was at their stadium. So that was pretty cool. We ended up getting put out over the 2 legs, but again, I think we got the best part of 2,000 at that game. So these are nighttime games, and you're walking out, and there's like all these people in the stand that you're not really used to seeing. You're used to getting maybe 100 people at a youth game. So that's pretty eye opening. And then I think it was Michelin with everyone's saying it's like a private jet. It was like a 20-seater plane we got from Aberdeen over to Denmark. So we're all taking photos and selfies on the plane, and it's having that like innocence of youth, but also going, we're players now.
I'm assuming a wee bit different getting that jet than the 201 over to Hamilton now to train.
I would imagine. I would certainly imagine. Just a little bit. But yeah, no, that it was honestly, it was fantastic. The club financially supported it as well, and it was cool because at that point you get issued with the Champions League balls. So you've got the first team playing with the SPL Miters, and we were talking about the Champions League balls going to Alec at this point. So no, really good, really good.
And at that time as well, obviously, like, it's safe to say that your apprenticeship, if you like, was kind of done at Hamilton. What was that like? Like, what kind of, obviously we hear stories kind of back then, the kind of, cleaning boots and people having different kind of things they need to do. For yourself, what was that like?
Just being in the full-time environment was exactly how you sort of described it. It was more so you were in at 8:15 in the morning, you didn't leave till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you were in any later, you wouldn't get your breakfast. We could put through an education programme at Hamilton, which was really, really positive. It was double sessions most days. You were having a lot of interaction with the first team, which again is a lot of credit to the type of club that Hamilton is. There's clubs that you don't even know the first team people's names, whereas as a goalkeeper and Potsy, the environment that he creates, training with the first team guys every single day. I think my last season or my second last season full time, there was an injury in the first team goalkeeping department, and he took me to Ibrox and he took me to Easter Road for the first team warm up, and that blew my mind. He knew Jamie Smith was a Celtic supporter, so he took him to Celtic Park as well. So having that close knit relationship with the manager and the goalkeeping coach as well, it was just, you felt part of a family rather than just an employee of a club or a business. So again, a lot of the days you'd go in and go, I hate this is tough, this is long, like had to put our phones in the box and all this stuff. We couldn't text our mates, but coming away from it, Doug Emery was my manager at that point, and George Cairns as well. He says, you need to enjoy this because this is the best days of your life. And we're all like, don't talk nonsense. And then you come away from it and you go, yeah, it definitely was. And you do anything to get back there.
Yeah. And I suppose looking now, so next season, I think we're safe to say you're staying.
Yes, I've committed for next season, yes.
So was that an easy decision for yourself based on how this season's went?
Yeah, it was. So obviously, I touched on it earlier about being quite an emotional person and getting very attached. And the hardest part about leaving East Stirling was that emotional attachment with the club and with the fans. And the fear was always, am I going to come here and not end up with the same relationship? And I've definitely matched that relationship, if not more so, with Albion Rovers fans and with the backroom staff. And obviously the relationship that I share with George and Sandy. So it was a case of, he spoke to me a couple of months ago now, and he says, look, really keen, like, you've done really well for us. Like, would you be interested in staying? I said, yeah, 100%. Like, I'd want to talk about it, blah, blah, blah. We had one more conversation, and it was a case of, yeah, I'm in. Like, I'm here with you guys, and I trust the plan that you are going to put in place. It's, for myself, it's about having a good relationship rather than being really, really selfish. And again, really happy with my decision. So.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of safe to say a lot of games in that when I've been over, probably more so before the game starts, you're out kind of warming up and that.
Yeah,
You're always kind of in your way back, always over at the fans. and always, kind of any interaction that I've ever kind of seen be put out to you, you're always kind of taking in. How, especially when it's such a kind of, I think it's safe to say, small club, like you can hear, I would assume standing in goals, you can hear most of the shouts that come from the stands. But how is it having that kind of relationship with fans?
It's honestly, it's hard to describe. It's really, really good. It's as if I know these guys by name or by face, and I really enjoy it. I've been lucky this year that it's quite a central club, Albion, so a lot of kids that I coach or that I work with have came to the games, and then obviously a lot of wider kids from the community and even some of the guys that have been there years and years. Oh, Ross, how we doing? Blah blah blah, and I'll come over and I'll get a photo, and everyone's really, really like excited. And for me, it makes me feel like a kid. And then it's also quite like it takes you back, going, I'm some sort of figurehead for these kids, or I'm someone that they want my autograph or they want a photo with me. So it's really, really great, and it just creates this really nice environment. Obviously, personally, again, I've been fortunate enough to have not had too much stick from the side. I don't think I've had an awful lot. And my mum and dad and my little dog come to the games as well. So there's actually been a few occasions that people have came up and went, "Are you Ross's mum?" Oh, he's been brilliant with him or her or whoever it happened to be. Like, oh, I can tell you look the same or that sort of thing. And it's always been really positive when people don't have to go out their way and do that. So
Yeah.
I've never met anyone who's not been nice to myself or to the team. Obviously, everyone holds their own opinions, and we do get stick from time to time, and it's more or less deserved mostly. So, no, a great environment, and a great club.
And I mean, I suppose I do have to ask, and not necessarily stick, but if with the grounds and the games that you've played in, not just at at Albion, but over the years, as I kind of touched on before, it's safe to say that you can hear a lot of shouts or anything that come from the stands.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a time where you've heard something and it's made you laugh?
Oh God, you hear some really, really stupid shouts, and then you hear some abusive shouts. And again, I think it depends how you take it. Some boys will bite, someone will laugh it off, and then for me, I just kind of enjoy it. I'm like, it's so good that this sort of interaction happens. Trying to think, one of my first seasons in the Lone League at East Stirling, we played Bo'ness away, and that's like a local derby. And I say it every year, like I don't enjoy going to Bo'ness away. It's a horrible environment from an away team. Great environment if you're the home team. And I remember being at the away end goal in the first half. We went 1-0 up quite early, and some guy over at the side was getting quite mouthy. I'm like, mate, shut up! Like, it just kept going and going and going, and they scored, and he was giving me dog's abuse. Like, oh, that's not going to be the first one. I wouldn't swear in camera, but you can imagine the language that was getting used. And I look over and I go, mate, you're paying money to watch me? Like, what are you on about? Turns out it was the club photographer at the time. It was a guy trying to take photos of the game. What's going on here? And then more recently, an Albion example, Rafe Rovers away was the worst abuse I've taken in my life. That was really bad, Rafe Rovers away. I think because we'd done so well in the game, I think their fan base was quite agitated. In the first half, I was away and there was no fans behind the goal.
Yeah.
And then the way that the allocation had worked, all the fans were behind the goal in the second half. So I ran out and it's just the usual stuff. Oh, you're rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And then the longer the game goes on, the worse it gets. And then obviously we're taking time over goal kicks and we're trying to play the game, and it just keeps going. And there's the ball's over here and it's playing, and it was this guy just kept going, and I'm like to him. I gave him the talking sign, and oh my God, I just lit a fire. They ended up scoring, and then my water bottle was beside the goal, and I'm drinking my water bottle, and I'm just taking, my ears are ringing. So Rafe was bad, and then on the flip side, Kilmarnock was really good. So that way end at Albion, where the drum and the kids usually sit, I'm running down there and they're giving me abuse. Oh, like, can't even touch a crossbar and all that, right? So I'm like, here, watch this, lads. And they're all like, wait, I touch a bar and I'm celebrating. So, yeah, it's good. You go to places and sometimes it's quite tense, and you go to other places and it's really positive. So it's just football. It's good to experience both sides.
And just to kind of finally touch on, obviously you're speaking on, you're now kind of confirmed you're staying next season at Albion Rovers. What's the kind of goal or the vision for next season?
The goal would, I think, for the guys who've spoken about it for a number of months now, is to build on what we've learned and what we've sort of grown this season, what we've developed this season. I think by the looks of things, quite a lot of the boys are going to stay. I think we announced 5 the other day, and I think there's 2 or 3 more that are still undecided or just trying to tie the knots together. So it's more so, can we get quality in the areas that have left, and can we go and try and again compete to the best of our ability? Obviously, everyone goes in thinking, "Oh, can we win the league here?" But for us, it's got to be, can we recruit properly? Can we play the system well that we're trying to play? And can we take every game as it comes and be positive on the pitch, as well as we're already really positive off the pitch. So Sandy said it a number of times that he loves working with this group, and the training's really good and the tempo's good, and we've got really good individuals in that dressing room. I think with 2, 3, 4 new faces that are going to bring that quality. Again, you look at the loan players that have come in recently. You've got Ethan and Aaron from Kilmarnock. You've got Corey, who's been in from Airdrie. They're young guys, but they've added the quality that maybe hasn't been there from time to time. And you can't fall in love with a loan player, unfortunately. But if we can go and get players of that calibre in over the season that are going to be with us, the hope is that we go and do well. I think a realistic finish this season would maybe be 8th, 7th, 6th, something in that sort of region. So can we go a few better? Can we go and compete? Can we go and challenge? Obviously, that's a long way away, but that's got to be the goal.
And I think, well, it's safe to say that the run kind of over the new year was phenomenal from the entire team.
Yeah, I think it was 10 or 11 games unbeaten within the league. Kept a good few clean sheets at that stage as well. And it comes from the messaging that we're getting from the dugout, and just we're hard to beat. Goals haven't flown this season. Unfortunately, we haven't scored anywhere near as many as we want to, albeit Naya scored a lot of goals. Bright scored a lot of goals. We've got goals across the team. Barry Duncan scores. Adam Fernie scores. We've got goals there. It's just we're stopping a lot. Can we add more? And then games become easier. Results become a lot better on the eye as well. We're getting through games 1-0, 2-1s, and you're digging in. Whereas if you bang, it suddenly becomes a lot easier. We can actually play better stuff at that point. But again, that's football, and that's a common problem that a lot of clubs have.
Yeah. And so just finally, and Ross, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. I wonder who I'm going to be asked to bring on now.
I am a bit reading. Hopefully, reading can hear some of his stories.
I do have just a couple of very quick fire questions. So really just as short an answer as you like. Just at the end. So the best player you've played with
at the time, or who they went on to be?
Either or.
I'm going to say Lewis Ferguson. I played with Lewis Ferguson at Hamilton for a few years, and he's obviously came on a very good game.
Best player you've played against?
Billy Gilmore would be the obvious choice. Played against a lot of really, really good players.
Favourite stadium that you've played in?
Clifton Hill.
that was the cop-out answer there, wasn't it?
Yeah, very cool. Other than that, I really enjoyed the Michelin Stadium in the Youth League. That was fantastic.
Favourite pre-match meal?
Pretty classic, just like chicken pasta, just the mainstream. To be fair, most days I referee on a Saturday morning, so it's usually a meal deal on the way.
So, finally, with the Euros coming up, who's your pick to win?
I've always been a big fan of Spain, so I'll say Spain.
And just finally, kind of a wee part on the Euros, how do you think Scotland will fare?
My expectations changed a little bit a couple of weeks ago. I think they'll do well. I think they'll do us all proud. Maybe not in the opening game, mind you, but beyond that, you've got to hope that there's positive performances at the very least. And I think there will be. There's too much quality in the squad and too much belief in the country for them not to go and do well, in my opinion.
Your favourite box set?
I don't watch an awful lot of TV, but I have watched really good box sets.
You can throw out more than one if it's easier.
Goodness, I enjoyed Power a few years ago. That was
Oh.
always fantastic. Netflix do a Scream sort of box set. It's that was really good. I've not watched a really good one in quite some time. I need to get my Netflix up and check that.
And finally, are you a gamer?
Not so much. I used to play Call of Duty a little bit being in school, but honestly now I'm on the pitch all the time. So sadly not.
And I suppose that kind of throws into the last part is, what's the one thing you do to chill out after a game or after
So
refereeing or whatever?
I'm quite a cinema geek. I love the cinema. I've got a Cineworld Unlimited card. I've had it for 6 years now. So I'll commonly go, if I get a day off or a night off, and go and watch 1 or 2 films. Just get a popcorn and an icy and just chill out. So I would say the cinema. I really enjoy the cinema.
What's your favourite film?
My favourite film ever? Oh my goodness. I really like The Great Gatsby.
I love that film.
Studied the book in school, and I told my English teacher, look, I'm just going to watch the film. And she's like, I suggest you don't. And I ended up doing it, and I ended up getting an A. So, play.
But look, Ross, really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. Look, all the best for the rest of the season, and getting into the next season as well. I will, as I say, still be at my local ground, so I'll still be at several games. Really appreciate you taking the time, mate, and all the best with the rest of the season.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, mate. Take care.
You too.
Thank you.